Right, with us tonight we have Marjorie Scott Anderson from the One Last Push Initiative. So good, so good to have you. Welcome, Marjorie.
Thank you. Good to be here. Really good to be here.
Nice. All right. So you can interact with her. If you remember family, if you have a question, yeah, put it in chat. And at the end, we will have some other questions. So feel free to ask all the questions you wish to. I'm sure Marjorie will answers as we go with you. All right. So Claudia will kick it off, and I'll just flow as we go through. So go on through.
All right. Good evening again, everybody. And as Jermaine said earlier, we have been interacting with various persons who are involved in missions, and just for them to share with us their stories and their background and what they've learned over the years and what we can learn from them, And so this evening we have our sister Marjorie with us. Now, I'm as interested in this interview as you all are, especially because not too long ago, Marjorie said to me, "You look like your mother." And I'm like, okay, how you know my mother? So I'm very interested to hear her story. And so we're just gonna get into it and start. So Marjorie, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, what part of Jamaica you're from, what was your childhood like, and how did you come to know the Lord as your Savior?
All right. I tend to go off trail, so feel free to bring me back on track.
Okay? Not a problem.
That would be Jermaine's job.
Okay. So I grew up in Spanish Town and Portland. So I was born in Portland in a tiny village called Haining. And the only people who know about Haining are the neighboring villages. So that's up in the cockpit country in the hills of Portland. But I really grew up in Spanish Town. My mom was in the postal service, and my dad was a policeman, and so they moved around a lot. So we were put in boarding school when it got to high school. What was the other question?
Where you grew up, how did you come to know the Lord as your Savior?
Now that's where you come in. That was thanks to your father, initially, really. I think he was the straw that broke the camel's back.
Okay.
So as I said, we were put in school. We went to Westwood High School, and that's in Trelawney. So on holiday, but I went to White Mart Primary School in Central Village.
Right.
And there, we met. We had friends, but we lost contact when we went to high school. In fact, because during the holidays, we were sent to Portland. And so we didn't get to interact with our high school friends nor our primary school friends. When I left high school, I linked back up somehow with a primary school friend whose dad, the name may be familiar, Gabidon. His dad was an elder at Hampton Green, and because I lived in Spanish, so he would come over. There was a group of them. His friends, Rodney's dad was an elder there as well.
Right.
But they had a very vibrant young people's meeting, and so they would come and get me and insist that I come with them. Well, I wasn't interested in God at the time for a number of reasons, but they had a fun young people's meeting, so they would pick me up and we'd go to the beach, we'd go to the river, we'd go to the mountains, we'd drive to Ocho Rios, we would do crazy stuff. So I like the crazy. And every time they would bring me home, then they would, so what about God kind of thing? I'm like, and then they had these young, vibrant people who would corner me and ask me, what if I die tonight? What's going to happen? I'm like, well, we'll find out when I die. Kind of. So I was very, really not into them and the God thing. But one New Year's Day, so we Hampton Green then started to have tent meetings in Ensom City, which was now a new developing community. And the New Year's Eve one year, I just literally found myself on walking towards the altar after Alan Smith gave the altar call. So I had been going there for maybe a couple of years, just with young people's meeting, and then got more and more involved. And then eventually at that night, I really decided to give myself to the Lord. So that was that.
All right, praise the Lord. So now we see how the dots are connected.
Right.
Got you,
Yeah,
got you,
lots
got
of
you. And for those
dots.
who don't know, Alan Smith is Claudia's
Yeah.
dad.
Yeah.
Right.
And Edie Giddon, which
Mhm.
should be your aunt, right?
Right.
She was the first local missionary that I've ever met. So she had this mystique about her because she was in some Spanish-speaking Latin America country she had gone to, and
Right.
came back and, oh wow, this, right from Hampton Green. And so that kind of piqued my interest at that time as well.
Okay.
All right. So good. Thanks for that, Marjorie. We understand the context. All right. So how do you then move from being saved, being a Christian, to actually getting involved in missions? What was that like? How did that happen?
Right. Okay. So in hindsight, I think it started immediately because I love kids and I went immediately into Sunday school, teaching Sunday school. So again, when we started the Sunday school in Ensom City, I was one of the teachers. So we started a Ensom children's ministry after the end of the crusade, because there were a lot of people who had gone forward, blah, blah, blah. So I really got involved in Sunday school then, and it really was a tremendous experience to see the delight in kids when you talk to them about this supernatural person and all the miracles he did, and that, if we allowed ourselves, he could do that for us as well. Then I got into child evangelism. I got trained, so started Good News Clubs, had a couple of Good News Clubs, did that. Continued primarily in children Sunday school, then went to youth fellowship, young people's meeting. I left Jamaica, and when I left, I went to a Brethren church, and so got very involved in their youth as well as help them to develop their.
Like Jamaica to go where? Where you went to initially?
To Washington, D.C.
Okay.
Maryland, really. Yeah. So the church there had a youth group, but it was fledgling, and so we helped to restart it. So again, when I came back home, I came back home, started going to Swallow, and got involved in children's ministry. So children's soup kitchen, hospitality, like all the things that I was gifted in.
Yes.
Right. And I say, and notice, because when you're gifted in something, you enjoy it. And because you enjoy it, you want to do those things. So, the hospitality, the altar call, the blah, blah, blah. I got involved in all that. But there came a time when I really felt like I needed more. And it wasn't over time that I was thinking that I want to do some more. Something just came upon me that there was more that I needed to do, that what I was doing just wasn't enough for me to grow or to contribute to the work of the kingdom. And so I just went online and thought about overseas missions. Went online. Before that, I volunteered for a year at Jamaica Youth for Christ. So did some missions with them to the US during Black History Month. We did a cultural exchange. So we would go under the guise of carrying our culture, but we were really doing missions. And that was exciting. We did that about 2 or 3 years. And then, like I said, this need for more came. Went online, was just going online. Then I came across this thing, researched it, sent them an email, told them I was interested. I wanted to go somewhere for about 3 to 4 months. Turns out that they had an office here in Jamaica. Turned out to be Operation Mobilization. Good old OM. So, and I'm telling you, God is just awesome. Because the country leader at the time was also looking to go on a missions long term, like 3 months. And so we had a meeting and we decided we would go together. There was one other person who wanted to go, And so she came on, but she could only do 2 weeks. Fine. So I did not want to go to Africa because everybody wants to go to Africa. So, I don't want to do the everybody thing, Father. So where do you want us to go? Africa, Marjorie, Africa. So I went to Zambia for about 3 weeks. And then from there, we went to Namibia for 2 months, whatever, a long time. When I came back, I was asked if I wanted the country leader was leaving. And I was asked if I wanted to take over. I said, no, I wasn't interested. Just wasn't quite sure what God was doing with me at the time. And, after a couple of, I was asked to meet with the director who was coming to Jamaica. Had a meeting with him. At the end of the meeting, I was signed on and I was volunteered to be the country leader. So that was a whole new thing for me. But before that, I also was getting involved with Swallows. I attend Swallowfield. I'm a member of Swallowfield Chapter and on their missions board. So got involved in their local missions, as well as we started doing overseas missions, and I got involved with some of them there as well. So that's it at the end of, so I remained after 4 years. I stayed with OM as their country leader. But 3 years ago, again, this shift came in my life. So I'm no longer the country leader, but I remain on their board. I'm still very involved with them. And the Lord has led me to this initiative called One Last Push Initiative.
Okay, right. And we had OM with us. The persons might remember, they were with us on Sunday.
On Sunday, yeah.
Right, as well as 2 weeks ago, I believe, we had our sister Dawn on.
Dawn Bass.
Right. And she was sharing about the ministry of OM. All right, so quite interesting. So tell us a little bit about your trip to Africa, to Zambia and Namibia. What were some of the things that you got involved with while there?
And this this has been your first overseas trip, right?
My first Africa
You had gone
trip.
to US.
Because I had gone to the US and I'd gone Cuba and I'd done Cuba.
Okay.
All right. In Zambia, we did pretty much what I was doing here in Jamaica. Went visited hospitals. We did a lot of walking in the villages, knocking on doors, one group, just knocking on doors and trying to get people engaged. I went through OM, obviously. So so it was like a group of 30 something of us. We were all from different countries. So that in itself was quite interesting. Coming together as a team with different cultures. We had people from Indonesia, our largest team, of course, was from the US, and there were 3 of us. So we did that. We had meetings, we had held women's meetings, did a lot of feeding of the poor, played games, like we would take kids, like hordes of kids. It's the first time, I've worked with kids, right? But trust me, it was the first time I was seeing a horde of kids all the time, and they were all dirty. And I ended up being dirty every day. Like I was changing my clothes twice because the dust and the dryness, and so much so I ran out of clothes by the time I went to Namibia. But yeah, so we played games, we just did normal things, but then sat down and really told stories from the Bible. And I think that was, and we handed out clothes, we showed love, compassion. We washed their feet literally so they could try the socks and the shoes on. We fed them. OM had a school for disabled. And in that culture, as I believe it was in ours back in these days, when you have a disabled child, that child was put away in a back room somewhere or in an outhouse. And so the ministry that OM had showed people that that they don't have to be put away in a back room somewhere. So we had people with Downs, we had cripples, we had all kinds of different. We had about 8 kids that we were working with, and then we also went into the communities to show them love to the disabled. So that was it. And working with them meant basically that we would make their breakfast, serve their breakfast, clean up, and then there was lunch, and we would take them out to play. We had a physiotherapist from Canada among us, so she would show us how to do and so on. So in Zambia, it was mostly that, and going into the village, door to door evangelism, and working with the kids ministry and the hospitals.
It's funny, sometimes when people think of mission trip, they think it's just about sharing the word and telling people about Jesus. But a great deal of it is just showing compassion and showing love and just loving on people and serving people.
Right. And I'm going to tell you something now that may change, or maybe just you might just cut me off and tell me, okay, Marjorie, enough of you. But one of the things that caused me to shift was just that fact that what we were doing was social intervention, that our focus was not on their hearts. Our focus was on their physical needs. And then we tack on the Bible study, or we tack on whatever else. And that bothered me after the first term. So I did 2 2-year terms. And it just started bothering me. We really don't care about their souls. And it's okay to give them clothes because they need it, and food and therapy. But I think ultimately the eternal aspect of why we're here is eternity. And we need it. I just felt a strong urge now to address that. And so what has happened is I've actually come to a place where I recognize that there's a difference between missions and evangelism. And I think you alluded to it earlier, Jermaine, although I don't think you meant it to the extent that I'm going to share now. But the difference is that evangelism is sharing the gospel, helping people to understand and therefore believe in Jesus. So we're growing the church because we're sharing Christ, telling them about God and telling them what Jesus and why they should believe in Jesus. Missions is crossing cultural borders. Now, I've heard it say in Jamaica, well, yeah, when we go downtown, we cross cultural borders because the language is different and blah, 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 maybe. But missions is helping people to know that there is a God, because 1/3 of the world doesn't know that. And 75% of Christians worldwide don't know that 1/3 of the world don't have a clue about Jesus. So missions is going where the church is not. So when you talked about where worship is, you said something about missions being
right, where worship isn't, missions is needed.
Missions, right. And I did read that from Piper. So basically, it is missions take the gospel of the kingdom of God where there is none. So my focus through One Last Push is on that group. They're called the unreached people groups. And the statistics still, years later, is that less than 1% of money collected within Christianity, less than 1%, and we're talking about trillions of dollars that is collected, goes to the unreached. The same percentage of missionaries, people, go to those people, less than 1%. Missionaries tend to go where churches are already, or there are other missions. So they just like my experience in Africa, there were other people there. Even when I went to the only mission trip I've been on that targeted the unreached in terms of my team was in Suriname. But normally when you go on a mission trip, you go with Christians and you go through churches. Right. So there are already Christians there, unlike the unreached, where the unreached people group globally has less than 2% Christianity. And as a matter of fact, they're saying where we are now, those that are left, those within that group that are still unreached, have no Christians at all. And that might sound a way, but oh, so little I'm a Christian. But the reality of that is, if they don't know a Christian, then they won't be told about Christ, and therefore they won't know of the hope and the salvation and all of
that. It's very interesting how you made that distinction between evangelism and missions, because yes, certainly we need to be reaching people, but here we have another group of people who it's almost like they're worse off, because not only don't they know Christ, but it's like there is such a small percentage, small possibility of them ever hearing about Christ, because they just don't have a witness within their community, within any, near reach to them. And so, yeah, it's, as you said, it's really important that we consider those persons, we think about it and how it is that we reach them. So tell us about how it is that One Last Push initiative is doing that. And I will say that, a couple months ago, one of my girlfriends from Swallowfield said to me, Claudia, you need to join us on this link. And she sent me a link from One Last Push. And for whatever reason, I had some other commitments and I wasn't able to join, but I found it interesting because I saw where it was focusing on Gambia and some of the people groups there. And for those of you here who don't know, I've been to Gambia.
really?
I was a part of one of the first missions groups from Jamaica with YWAM. We went to the Gambia back in 2000, I think it was. And we made a link with Brother Iwudi. I don't know if you know Brother Tele Iwudi. He's Nigerian, working in the Gambia at the time. And so we were able to go into some of the villages of these people. And it's amazing how they are so pulled towards Jamaicans. And so that alone gave us an inroad just to go in and pray over these communities, these people groups. And so tell us some more about these groups, people groups that it is that you're having this.
Wait, Marjorie, before you tell us, I just want to pick your brain just a bit. Why do you think, from where you sit, why do you think there is a seeming apathy among God's people as it relates to missions? Why does the unreached remain unreached? Give us two reasons. From where you say, what was the issue? What is that you're not talking about it enough? What's the issue why you think the unreached remains unreached? And then we're going to go to the One Last Push. From where you sit.
All right. So I think that as humans, we like comfort and ease. And it is comfortable to give money for somebody else to do the dirty work. So that's one thing. We just don't like challenges. Secondly, I believe that the church, the fact that they have say wherever you can do missions wherever you are. I really have a serious problem with that more and more, right? What that does is it doesn't focus on the unreached. It causes you to focus on where you are, your surroundings, and your family, and not that those are not important. I'm not discounting that. The word go, it means to cross, to travel, to cross borders, to the ethnic, it said the nations, to the ethnos, to people who speak different from you, to people who live different from you. That's where we are to go. And that is uncomfortable. Also, geographically, they are difficult to reach.
Right.
Sometimes politically, they're difficult to reach because there are laws that says, we are not Christians, we don't want Christians, don't come here or we're gonna kill you. So those I think are the immediate reasons. I think the primary one is that people are just too comfortable doing soup kitchens and ministry, and they're, you know, building their mansions or whatever they're building, and you know. So.
Got you. All right. So how is one last push addressing that, and what are you guys doing? Talk to us about Claudia's question.
Yeah. Okay. So I think what Claudia
And
alluded
why
to.
one last push? That's a very telling name. What's this one last push about?
Okay. So when I was pulled aside from OM, I was saying, okay, God, what next? And it was just amazing the paths that were placed before me. So I realized that my focus now must be on the unreached. And so I was a residential missionary for a Wycliffe camp, three summers ago. And during our quiet time, I just, spent time with God about next step. And there was another missionary there. I think she's with YWAM as well, but she was home on sabbatical. I met up with her. And so I was sharing with her, what God was doing. And she was, we're sharing together. And I was just saying that people don't understand the desperate need for these unreached people, that people are dying. 75,000 people die every day. And I'm pretty sure a high percentage of that are non-believers. And I'm saying, I don't understand why people just don't get it. We really, the world is definitely coming to an end. This was before COVID. And I'm saying we just need to just get them to just come together and just make this one last push to get to them. And my girlfriend, that's it. It's one last push. We all just need. So I'm like, not bad, because I'd also aligned myself with an international body called Finishing the Task. It's actually headed by Rick Warren. So we're a part of Finishing the Task, and Finishing the Task mandate is to reach all the unreached groups. And their mandate is to have a Bible, a believer, and a body of Christ by 2033, I think, in each group. And so what we have done, not intentionally, but the Lord, I'm telling you, you know how people say God talk to them and God say, for me, he just leads. I mean, I'm just there. I just go there and it's there. And the 1% is what we focus on. We want to change the statistics of 1%. And so what we do is I send out emails monthly, bi-monthly to churches just to give them information. So that's one thing we do. Hoping to get opportunities like this, where we can sit and talk about the desperate, urgent plight of the unreached and how we can do it. And so the first question I get asked, on the very rare occasion that I get any attention, because the church's attention is definitely not on the unreached or missions in this way. And when they are involved in missions, it's not to the extent that they ought to be. And so what we've done, we send out information, but we had an event called Worship Warriors for 12 months, where we focused on people groups that I was associated with. So in the Gambia, we had through YWAM as well. We were working with YWAM, and I identified 3 tribes, unreached tribes: the Wolof, the Mandingos, and the Manjakos. And so my partner, a missionary there, identified 2 villages. And so I fundraised for 200 Bibles to be bought, to be distributed. So right now we've covered 2 villages, with Bible. So we're doing evangelism. And the great thing is out of that, now, as you may remember, the Gambia is primarily Muslim. It's like 90% Muslim. Well, having gone into one of the villages, a Muslim father gave us his house to have Bible study. A Muslim man gave us us Christians, his house to have Bible studies. And so lots of fascinating stories have been coming out of just that ministry. So that's what we do. We raise funds, we ask people to contribute. One Bible costs $11 landed. So, one Bible is one family. So
$11.
So that right for $11. Eternity we're talking, folks. $11. So I say it again, $11, eternity, So that's one thing we do. So one of the highlights of that is that we would get somebody from each people group to come on and pray with us. So they would pray in the language and they would pray from the heart, knowing what the actual situation there is. So we did that for 12 months. Now we have shifted to something called tea and testimonies. So we're having tea. We're doing the traditional British afternoon tea. We have a little forum, a 5-minute slot or so for new entrepreneurs to come on and talk about what service or business they're doing, just to give them an opportunity. And then we talk about tea, tea etiquette, have a little fun. We play maybe a game of bingo or so. And then we do testimonies. We have 2 or 3 people giving testimonies. But the whole idea is to have at the end, which is what we do, just to highlight the fact that there are unreached people groups and we can reach them. So how do we reach them? So you get the information there. The one easy thing is to download the Joshua Project app. Joshua Project has an app called Unreached of the Day. No cost. You have a smartphone or you have a laptop.
Again, Joshua Project app.
No, okay, it's Unreached of the Day.
Right.
Unreached of the Day, and it's done by the Joshua Project.
Got you.
Right. So what I'm encouraging churches to do is to include in their weekly or bi-weekly prayer meetings, include the unreached. On a Sunday, once per month, twice per month, pray for the unreached. And you can get information from this. What the app does is it gives you a little bit of history about a particular people group and tells you how you can pray for them. It actually gives you prayer points. It gives you some stats on it. But one of the exciting things about it is there's a button that when you're gonna pray, you press praying and you see the number. So there, depending on time of day, it might be 800, 200, sometimes 1,000, depending on time of day. And it excites me that I'm part of this group praying for this tribe on this day. And with so many people globally praying for this, God is gonna hear. He's gonna hear. So that's one thing you can do. And then you can do the Bible. I've also partnered with a company called the Seed Company. And they're part of the Finishing the Task movement as well. And what they have done is they have gotten us commitments, 24/7 prayer for the speeding up of Bible translations. So my slot is Sunday nights at 7. Every Sunday night, 7 o'clock, we pray for an hour for the speeding up of Bible translation. And that has been awesome. When I started with them in March, there were 50 countries. Now there are over 120 countries praying for the speeding up of Bible. And again, there have been fabulous testimonies coming out of that. And also you learn about the different nuances and challenges and fabulous facts about how the Bible gets translated, what goes into it and so on. So those are the things that we do.
All right. Thank you, Marjorie. Before we take any questions from those who are here, we have a few, but just want to open the floor to any questions who are here. How has your involvement in missions impacted you spiritually on a personal level? Has it made you talk to us? What's the impact on you personally as a Christian and a believer?
Yeah, well, when I undertook OM as a country leader, I was like, God, I have no clue. So this is me and you. And so what that did was it caused me to be more dependent on God. So I do kind of weird things with him, like sit down and have conversations and, okay, this week, what are we going to do? You know, so it built my faith, it built my confidence in the reality of God. And so my relationship generally got better. Even more so now with One Last Push, I still am the sole person in there. I'm still looking for people. So I have to depend on him. It's his work. And so I need to hear what he wants me to do and who's going to do it with me. So that's what it has done. In order to be able to hear from him and to be confident in what I'm doing, then I have to get to know him more. So I have to spend time, and not in the traditional, have devotions, but have time with him, and develop a relationship so that he uses me and I use him. I learn from him, I understand him, I aspire to be more like his son, Yeshua, so I can do what he wants me to do.
Got it. Thank you. All right, any questions, peeps? Any questions you have, you can raise your hand or you can just unmute your mic and ask. Any questions or put in the chat, either one. Any questions before we go to a few others?
Sister Marjorie, I am so excited listening to you and the joy that comes from you when you talk about your work for the Lord. It's so exciting just listening to you. And I'm so encouraged.
Bless God. It is exciting, Patricia. It really is. I always talk about the fish and the bread story.
Mm-hmm.
The little guy had a little fish and a little bread, and look what God did. I always say I don't think I would have shared my lunch that day. It's only a few fish and a little, but he did. And look what God did. So very often we think we're not ready, or, whatever. But God is not interested in that. He's interested in your heart, in how willing you are to offer yourself good. And believe me, it is exciting. It is exciting.
And the question that I have for you is,
yes, that's your question.
What is the difference, yes, Jeremy. What's the difference between a person who have committed their lives to just be a missionary by profession versus a person who is a missionary through profession? For example, you have like 20 years ago when I went to JTS, I don't know if it's the same thing, when they sent out the police officers, the nurses, some doctors as missionaries. They already had a profession, but they trained them to be missionaries and sent them all over the world to work. And so they have a job, but they're doing it through they're doing missionary through their job, missions work through their job, versus a person like Claudia who just, okay, I'm not going to work, I'm just going to commit my life to being a missionary. What is the difference? Because and then I go with the next question.
The difference really is just how you get your income. That's the difference. The difference is that we are the traditional missionaries. We look to full-time to support, so that we can focus. It's the New Testament way. People talk about tent making because Paul did that and so on. But I believe also now that as the world has changed, that we need to find other ways to earn. So the difference is very basic. We don't have a profession, and they do. Now, OM, over the last, I think 3 years ago, established a program for that called Scatter, go thou and take your profession with you. So what they've actually done is they've set up a placement agency, and people who want to go to the Far East, the Middle East, Africa, wherever, as a carpenter or plumber or whatever, would then apply to them. And if there is a job, then they would send, they would interview them. So they've actually got an employment agency, and they go. There's two ways to do that though. One is that you go not through a missions agency. So you go as a professional, but you know in your heart that you're going to do missions. So there's no accountability unless you decide that you want to align yourself with the agency or the organization and so on. So there's that way. But again, just to go back to your question, what the difference is one earns their keep and the other fundraises for their keep.
Good. Pat, you have a follow-up question?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Pat. Question from Yannick. How can someone assist to purchase Bibles for a household?
Okay, I can give you the information after. If you give me your information, I can give you the bank. So you would deposit it in a bank, and then I send it through Western Union to the Gambia. It's easier to buy the Bibles there, and we buy them through Bible Society of the Gambia.
Okay.
All right, great. So we definitely get that information to the church, because that's something I think we'll definitely be interested in, and have learned more about one last push. All right, thanks, Jens. Any other question? Can unmute your mics and you can speak, or I can put question in chat.
I think Richard Thompson has a question.
Oh,
he does. Okay. Richard Thomas, do you have a question? I just.
No, he does.
oh, Marjorie just pulling him out.
Oh, you know Richard Thomas. University. Question for you, Marjorie. We asked this to all our missionaries, and it's the idea, the whole thing about call. In your sharing, you said you had a strong urging, right? Some people hear a voice, literally. Talk to us about how this call thing work. I was a young or old person, they're wondering if this mission thing is for them, and yeah, they don't know if this is for them. How do you process that? How do you walk through that? What comes with the give? Yes.
I think we're all called to do missions. Missions, as I think it's defined in the Bible, that we go. You don't have to personally go. I'm sure OM said, pray, give, go. You can pray. And let me tell you something, guys. Praying is so effective. It is so effective. So praying, and one of the things about praying is that you have to prepare yourself to pray. You have to, because your prayer, it's the fervent prayer and confident prayer that is effective. So you have to be in that place where you're going to pray with confidence. Pardon me. That because you are confident that God is going to answer. And this is the best place to do that kind of praying. Excuse me while I take a sip, because we know that we're praying the will of God when we ask Him for the souls.
Right.
Right.
There's no two ways about that one.
Right. So that is one easy, confident prayer. So all you need to do is just become fervent about it. You also have to, so there's praying. You can give. You can, people call it tithing, but there's also giving of gifts. You can support a missionary. Trust me, missionaries need support. We're always under-supported. The statistics I gave you, 1%, 1%. 1% of every church goes to missions. And then you can go. Now, how are you going to go in these COVID times? We're in Zambia, in the Gambia right now, but we haven't gone physically. So we partner with agencies that are already there. We partner with churches. Pardon me. My next step is actually to have. I've been invited to be part of a program that a radio program that they're doing there in the Gambia. So you can what you need to do. You sit with Father and you say, what do you want me to do? I'm ready. How do you want me to go? When, where? And believe me, he answers.
Got you.
Right. All right. So we have another question in the chat. It says, how do you serve in areas that have a political resistance to the gospel?
I hope you're thinking to go while you're asking that. How do you serve? I would recommend that you go to a missions agency, that you wouldn't go as an individual. However, if the Lord is telling you to go as an individual, you must be obedient to it. So when I counsel people about going into missions, firstly, you must be convinced, 100% convinced that God is saying to go now and to go to this place. Because where he calls, he equips and he provides. He does. So whatever the challenges are going to be, he's going to prepare you for it. He's going to provide for it. I think right now I'm sure you've heard of the the missionaries in Haiti that were kidnapped, right? I mean, that is part of it. But I'm sure God has equipped them to deal with that circumstance. And he will provide according to his purpose in that situation. So if you're going into a country where it's illegal to be a Christian, then you go through a missions agency. I recommend that. And then there are ways that they have developed to do that.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Any other question as we turn in for the landing? You can open your mics or you can put in the chat. You have any question?
Just talk to us about that, and I mean, you have gone through different phases over the years and been involved with different agencies, worked with different agencies. But what does a typical day look like for you?
Okay. A typical day for me is I do what I call a God connect in the mornings. As I wake up, I do a God connect.
God connect, okay.
Yeah. So it was like a hi, thank you for last night. This is a new day, whatever, however he leads me. So I don't have a really full, sometimes it leads into a full time with God. But, I do that. And then I try to have some exercises done.
Praise the Lord, exercises.
And then, amen. And then I sit down with what I call my time with God. And that varies each day of the week. But usually on a Monday, I would sit and just allow him to kind of just tell me, what a week will look like. For my time with him is important in shaping the rest of the day. Okay. Outside of that, what are the traditional things called churches, which I absolutely hate to do, email churches. And so I don't do it as often as I should, but I set myself targets, right? So I'm supposed to connect with I think 12 churches, 3 churches per month, and build relationship with at least 6 of them by the end of the year. So I set myself targets and then I work towards those targets. So it's usually, and then I have my newsletter that I do monthly. So I have to design, and half the time I'm learning how to use whatever software I'm using. And then, so it's mostly admin trying to get opportunities to speak to churches, or sometimes to develop the events, to prepare for my weekly prayer focus, where we focus on the speeding up of Bible translation. I do research, put a PowerPoint together, get some videos, and we just, so that we can have a good discussion and understanding, so that when we go into prayer, we pray intelligently.
Right.
So I spend time preparing that. And then I have this monthly event here and Testimonies. I find people to come on. I find people to participate, try to make it different. Research games. I see the only two supporters I have this year are on. Thank you so much. Let me see. I don't see one anymore. But I prepare for those events, for those two events. And then there are things that we're planning, like conferences, seminars, so on, trying to see if we can develop relationships to do events. So my day is primarily planning events that focuses on helping people to, one, become aware of the unreached, and two, become involved in reaching them before it's too late. As Rick Warren says, it's not good news if it gets to them too late.
Yeah.
Not good news. And there's a saying by this guy that says the mark of a church, the mark of a great church is not its seating capacity, but its sending. And I just love that. The very first time I saw it, that just speaks volumes. And I hope that Harborview Gospel Chapel, I'm very thrilled that you're doing a whole month of focus on missions. It is very important. It is very critical. And I encourage you guys, each one of the 19 of us that are on, that we devote more time to the reality of the desperate plight of the unreached. The fact is that even if we give them food and keep them healthy and give them clothes, their soul is what is important. The soul is what is important. And so if we can get Bibles into their hands, so we evangelize in the Gambia, we do evangelism, and we give the Bibles to them, and then we start a Bible study, which hopefully will grow into a church. But we do take the Bible for granted here on this side of the earth. And I remember one of the comments from one of the recipients of the Bibles was, she never thought she would own a Bible in her life. Now, this is an adult woman, and one guy rode a day to the city where he heard that Bibles were being given out to I forget his name, Paul. His name is Paul, my missionary. And when he saw the Bibles, that they were really giving out Bibles, he left and rode to his dad, a Muslim, to tell him that these Christians were actually giving out Bible and wanted, I think he went with trepidation to tell his dad, but he need to go and tell his dad, only to find out that his dad had already gotten a Bible and was already holding devotions in his Muslim home. So, you give $11 and you think it's only $11, that's a whole household salvation there. We don't, I'm encouraging you to come on and pray with us on a Sunday. Come on and pray for the speeding up of Bible translations. We see videos of jubilation, several celebrations just to receive a Bible. We go to Bible Society and buy a Bible and we come home and put it down for months before we know. But they're just, these weeks, there's one man in the village that said he never thought, he cried when the first set of Bibles were delivered in his heart language. Boy, this is like an 80-something-year-old man he looked. He never thought that he would witness that in his lifetime. We hear about how the Bible is used as almost a textbook in schools, in villages. It teaches their lifestyle. You live, this is the basis of how you live. Teachers teach from the Bible. People learn to read their own language from the Bible. From the Bible. So there's so many components to it. And you know, this is my passion. I would be here all night, so please you have to stop me.
All right, thank you, Marjorie. Really appreciate it. Our hearts are truly quickened, and it won't stop at that. I can guarantee you. I'll open the floor for any one last question before we bring it to a close. Anything that you want to ask, go ahead. You can unmute your mic and ask. I can put it in the chat. Any other questions?
I like stay faithful.
Stay faithful. We stay faithful. I love it name as well. I don't know we stay faithful. I was forgetting we stay faithful. That's Daniel.
Stay faithful can come join one last push.
Right. So, all right. If there are no questions, Marjorie, I open the floor to you. Any last comments you have? Any last closing remarks you have? Go on, you.
I just really want to encourage you to submit. It really is about submission. To submit to God, to submit to the Holy Spirit in a real way, in not just in your head knowledge way, but in your compassionate heart. Give myself, you know, we sing, I give myself away so you can use me. And we really enter into that and move on. But I want to encourage you all to do that, to give yourself fully and completely to God, so that he needs you. He needs you, you know, so that we are his hands and feet, so that these people who have never ever, you know, every time I say it, it's hard still for me to understand, well, somebody who don't have a concept of God. And I'll just share very quickly with you. When I went to Suriname, we went up the Amazon River so we left the city and we went up the river to these villages that worship their ancestors. And you know, as we went along the river, the largest, tallest tree was always decorated, because these were gods. And when I was walking through the village, almost every couple of steps, you see these shrines, these altars to these dead people. And so to go into a village, you have to get permission to go. So we went to the chief's hut and we're talking through about 3 different translators to tell him what we want to do and to get his permission to go in. So we ended up talking with him for a long time. And one of the questions I asked him to ask him was, have they ever heard of God before now? And he said, yes, he heard of God. So I was delighted because, you know God. So then it dawned on me to ask, what does he know about God? And what they know is that when they're told by their parents that when babies come to the village, it is God who brings them to the village. That's all they know about God. So it's just like, oh, we have the Stark story. Stark bring the babies. That's what they know about God. And that bothered me. And then I thought to ask them, so through the interpreters now, I asked if this God still brings babies to the village. And he said, yes. So I said, have you ever then thought of asking this God that is alive, that is still bringing joy through babies to the village? Have you ever tried to pray to him instead of your ancestor who is not bringing babies to the village and, you know, bread and other nothing? and you could see the pause, the weighted pause, like, wow, I just never thought of that. In that culture, you just don't think about those things. In that culture, you think. And there are 3 billion such people in the world. 3 billion such people who don't have a concept of God. And we can pray. We can pray, and we can give our talent, we can give our skills. I need IT people. You can give your money, and we can go. And I say, in this 21st century, we don't have to physically go. We can reach those places through persons who are already there or nearby there. Okay, so I am asking you to really just give yourself to the Lord, ask him where, when, and how, what. But I do know that you can start tonight. I do know you can start tonight by praying. And again, I am available to help you guys, to guide you, to build your program more, to whatever help you need, I'm here. I work through, I'm associated with some other international agencies outside of Youth with the Missions and OM, but I'm there, and they have a wealth of opportunities, a wealth of information. There is 1615 that I'm aligned with now recent. There's Jamaica House of Prayer. They're looking for missionaries to just take a 1-hour slot or whatever, because they're aiming towards 24/7. They're just almost anything you would like to do or you feel led to do, I'm sure I can find resources to help you to do it. God bless you, and thank you so much. I really appreciate being here and enjoyed it.
So did we. Sure we did. Thank you so very much, Marjorie. My heart burned as you spoke. I know Stay Faithful commented that this should not be just for a month. And the approach of the leaders is really to develop a culture of missions in the local church, in our church. And this is a first step. It's not an only step. We'll be engaging Marjorie more, I assure you. This is the first step to quicken our minds, to inform us, to get us thinking in that way as we follow up in more meaningful ways. Because we do agree that a great church is not about the seating capacity, but the sending capacity. Another person online is asking, how can you contribute to missionaries if you can't do online transfers?
But you can do online transfers.
No, if you're unable to. If you're unable to do online transfers, is there another way to contribute? I guess I could say if they get the cash to us, we can get the cash to you. That's one of the simple ways.
Right.
If they get the cash to us,
sure.
and we do receipts. And we do receipts and stuff.
Yeah.
So person, no, that's one simple way that if you have cash, get cash to us, we get the cash to them and we just receipt it.
Right. Or we could do I could give the bank information, and then you could go directly to the bank. Yeah.
Yeah, some banks are very strange. They don't allow those direct deposits, because unless you do it online, depending on the bank you're at.
That's true. That's true nowadays. Yes.
Depending on the bank you're at. Yes. Thanks again, Marjorie. Thanks so much for just your passion and sharing your heart with us. Really, really appreciate it on behalf of all of us here at Harbour, on behalf of all of those who are on Zoom. We'll be in touch to see how best we can think through the next steps and the best we can just replicate. Because right now we only have 19 persons on. So many persons did not hear what now being said. And we'll post this, of course, on our channel, and feel free to share the link, guys. Send to your friends. Share it so they can get a feel and a vibe of what we have discussed today. We're gonna stop the recording now, and then there you go.